The National Desk, America's News, now.
I was upstairs, and so if I had been in my room, I might have gotten sucked out the window, which is crazy.
More than 20 tornadoes hitting in just one night, and the threat is not over. How many people are on watch to weather a new storm? A federal appeals court will consider if District Attorney Fani Willis can stay on the case, what it means for Donald Trump and his Georgia co-defendants.
It's maybe as if someone had driven a nail through my foot.
A South Carolina man lucky to be alive after a severe flesh-eating bacterial infection, where he got it, and just how deadly this disease can be. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Another severe weather threat is upon us tonight as several tornado warnings are issued today in parts of Missouri and Tennessee, and more threats to come. You can see here the areas in orange and red. Nearly 22 million people are at risk of these severe storms. Tornado watches still in effect until at least midnight tonight over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she declared a state of emergency today after Michigan was hit with one of at least 5 states hit by as many as 21 tornadoes yesterday. The city of Portage, Michigan, was hit extraordinarily hard. As many as 40 homes are uninhabitable because of damage. But upon first look, authorities are counting their blessings on what could have been much worse.
To be standing here right now and tell you that as far as we know, we've had no loss of life, no major injuries whatsoever, is incredibly fortunate. Makes you think that somebody certainly is looking out for us.
And tomorrow may not be much better, as 60 million people here in the yellow and orange will again be under a level 2 or 3 out of 5 risk for severe weather. Stay tuned with the National Desk on air and online for all the latest information. Sights and sounds of a standoff in Washington, D.C. Early this morning, 36 protesters arrested as police dismantled a Gaza solidarity encampment at George Washington University. Law enforcement deploying pepper spray in at least one clash with demonstrators. The university said they were seeing indications that the protests were turning violent, but demonstrators, they said protests were peaceful.
Like, we've been here peacefully protesting. This was our camp. It became a community. Like, we were here speaking up for something noble.
The clampdown just the latest in a string of student-led protests to be cleared by police on orders from university administrators over the past 3 weeks. Students are advocating for their schools to cut ties with Israel over the war in Gaza. Some schools have successfully negotiated with protesters by agreeing to more transparency on their Israeli-related investments. Members of Congress are turning their attention to K-12 schools after college protests and anti-Semitic incidents erupted across the country. As Sinclair National correspondent Matt Gelka tells us, some members on Capitol Hill believe grade school is where anti-Semitism is starting, while school administrators say they're taking every incident very seriously.
The very need for this hearing is a travesty.
Incidents include students repeatedly hearing anti-Semitic comments in classrooms and hallways, such as "kill the Jews."
The student said he wished Hitler could have hit more Jews, including her. What disciplinary actions have been taken against those students?
House Republicans grilled 3 school leaders from large school districts and liberal cities around the country. The school officials from New York City, Berkeley, California, and Montgomery County, Maryland have all faced allegations of anti-Semitic incidents in their schools, including hate speech and harassment allegations. 2 of the school systems face civil rights investigations.
Our babies sometimes say hurtful things. We are mindful that all kids make mistakes. We know that our staff are not immune to missteps either. However, anti-Semitism is not pervasive in Berkeley Unified School District.
Jewish students and parents gathered before the hearing to call out anti-Semitism they've seen in their schools. Charges, they say, have fallen on deaf ears from school leaders.
Good morning.
Nissan Safanov is a sophomore in the New York City school system.
A 15-year-old Jewish boy was punched and kicked in Midwood, Brooklyn. My very own brother was afraid to go to school because of the mob of protesters.
Do you think anybody needs to get fired?
I don't think people necessarily need to be fired. I feel like people need to open their eyes, realize the situation, handle it.
Tamar Caspi was part of a group of Jewish parents who traveled from California to D.C. looking for solutions.
Our Jewish teachers and our Jewish students are simply not safe, and nobody is holding the schools accountable.
Now, the same committee previously grilled college presidents over their handling of anti-Semitism on campuses. That led to the Harvard and Penn presidents stepping down, and it came before the protests and tensions that have gripped schools nationwide. Amira?
And Matt, did the school officials say any of the students or teachers involved in these anti-Semitic allegations were disciplined?
Well, generally, all three administrators said discipline action was taken, but declined to get into specifics. At least 30 students have been suspended in New York City, but Republicans on the committee were especially angry that no teachers or principals had been fired over the anti-Semitic allegations. Amira?
Live from Washington, D.C., Matt Gelka, thank you. And breaking news from the House floor tonight, Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene officially called a vote to vacate the Speaker's chair. The motion was met with boos on the floor. A vote was immediately called and was resoundingly defeated just moments ago, meaning Speaker Mike Johnson will remain in his position. Donald Trump's election interference case in Georgia could be delayed yet again. This as a Georgia appeals court has agreed to review Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's continued prosecution in the case. This follows the accusations of an improper relationship with her former special prosecutor Nathan Wade. A judge in March found no such evidence, allowing Willis to remain on the case as long as Wade resigned, which he did. Once the appeals court rules, the losing side could ask the state Supreme Court for a possible appeal, which could delay the trial for Trump and his co-defendants even further. 26-year-old Jose Ibarra, the suspect in the murder of Augusta University nursing student Laken Riley, has been indicted on 10 charges in the college student's death. In addition to murder, Ibarra is facing charges including kidnapping with bodily injury and aggravated assault with intent to rape, as well as spying on another University of Georgia staff member. Ibarra is currently being held without bail. The case has been a political lightning rod because Ibarra illegally entered the country with his brothers in April of last year. A New York State man is facing nearly 100 felonies after a search warrant turned up nearly a dozen ghost guns and a mountain of illegal ammo. Court paperwork says he intentionally possessed 10 unserialized firearms, 2 assault rifles, 80 extended magazines, shotgun shells, unfinished frames for assault rifles, plus an unknown amount of cocaine. Court records go on to say a 17-month-old child was residing in the residence, which contained 10 unsecure firearms.
And they found this, Dick's Sporting Goods cache of firearms and firearm equipment. Which leads to the obvious question, what's he doing with all of that? He's not using it for his personal use. So it's of great concern to me, and we're going to be prosecuting him very aggressively until we find out what exactly he was up to.
A man who attempted to shoot a pastor at a Pennsylvania church is now charged with homicide after his cousin was found shot to death. That's according to police. Bernard Jr. Polite was arrested on Sunday after police say he tried to shoot Pastor Glenn Germany during a live streamed sermon. We want to warn you, the video may be disturbing. The suspect's cousin, Derek Polite, was then found dead in his home. Polite is in jail pending a preliminary arraignment. And check out this video of a FedEx cargo plane making an emergency landing at Istanbul's airport in Turkey after its front landing gear completely failed. The pilot successfully landed the plane without a wheel. No one was injured and all crew deplaned safely. But more questions for Boeing tonight, as this plane was a Boeing 767. Boeing aircrafts have been highly scrutinized all year after repeated mishaps on several of their most popular models around the world. A South Carolina man is recovering from a serious flesh-eating bacterial infection. Brent Norman stepped on several seashells while walking on a Charleston beach at the end of April. He developed severe foot pain and swelling and went to the ER after a few days. The doctor said he had a type of Vibrio and prescribed him antibiotics. These infections are rare, but 1 in 5 people die from them. Norman isn't letting that keep him from the sand.
My reward is living at the beach, and I intend to continue to do that. Go as soon as my foot's healed, I will be back on the beach.
Uber and Lyft are still threatening to leave Minnesota because of a possible change to employees' minimum wage. Lawmakers just advanced a bill that would require rideshare drivers there to be paid at least $1.27 per mile and 49 cents per minute. But Uber and Lyft were not part of the negotiations for the bill. Company reps said yesterday that they'd leave by early July rather, if it becomes law. Coming up, the U.S. is halting the shipment of thousands of bombs to Israel. Why Democrats say the move is justified. Then how President Biden is trying to convince voters in the swing state of Wisconsin that his economic policies are better than Donald Trump's. And more young adults are getting liver disease. What doctors say is the biggest reason for this concerning trend. We'll be right back.
Continue to blatantly defy the United States President, Secretary of Defense, and Secretary of State.
Several Democrats in Congress defending President Joe Biden's decision to pause a shipment of American-made bombs to Israel. U.S. officials telling Reuters that specific shipment included 1,800 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs. The halt, Democrats said, warranted given Israel's possible operations in Rafah, an incursion the Biden administration had warned the country against. It comes as we await the release of a highly anticipated report assessing the legality of Israel's military campaign and its compliance with international law. A ruling against the U.S. ally could result in the restriction of more shipments of weapons. In Rafah, about 50,000 Palestinians have fled the southern city over just the last 48 hours as a result of an evacuation order, but grave concerns tonight for their well-being. The UN says no goods entered Gaza on Wednesday through key crossings. This after Israel seized the Palestinian side of the Rafah crossing, a vital entry point for aid to Gaza, jeopardizing accessibility to life-saving aid. Israel's Netanyahu says they must go into Rafah in order to continue dismantling Hamas.
While I understand that the concerns are raised, we have to understand that the war against Hamas is a legitimate war, a war that has to be conducted.
President Biden is back in the battleground state of Wisconsin, putting his economic agenda directly up against that of Donald Trump's. He's announcing a $3.3 billion investment by Microsoft to build a new artificial intelligence data center. It's going up in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, the same site where technology manufacturer Foxconn once planned to build a massive campus.
In fact, he came here with your Senator, Ron Johnson, literally holding a golden shovel, promising to build the 8th wonder of the world. Are you kidding me? Look what happened. They dug a hole with those golden shovels, and then they fell into it.
Foxconn told Forbes last year the project touted by Trump was moving too slowly and had other obstacles to overcome. Without elaborating, Biden says the new AI data center will create 2,000 tech jobs and 2,300 construction jobs. It's an effort to show what Biden calls a manufacturing boom, which he says Trump promised but never delivered on. More states and school districts around the country are looking to ban cell phones from the classroom. But is it an effective tool to help students? For an answer, we can look to Norway, as they haven't just prohibited phones from classes, but from schools as a whole. The National Desk's Janae Bowens joins us now with a closer look at the results.
Norway might be onto something.
When they come, they lock in their mobiles, and when they leave, they can bring it.
They've essentially banned students from having smartphones and tablets in schools. Their prime minister says the kids love it.
They say that, we start to play in the breaks. The girls say, we take a shower after the gym. We are not afraid anymore to be photographed. And there's a completely different social interaction.
And a study from Sarah Abrahamson, a postdoctoral fellow at the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, found that smartphone bans helped to reduce the girls' need to see a psychological specialist for mental health issues by almost 60%, and it helped to improve their GPAs. Girls also experienced a 46% drop in bullying, and boys saw a 43% decrease.
The old new adage, if you won't say it to someone's face, then you shouldn't say it through a device, a text message, or a snap, or any of the above. But unfortunately, people feel too free to just express themselves and say what they want.
Mental health expert with JustAnswer.com and mom, Jennifer Kalman, already limits her twins' cell phone and social media use. She'd like to see what's being implemented in Norway here in the U.S.
We don't just hand our children drugs, yet we hand them a cell phone with free reign, and it does the same things to the brain as drugs do, but we don't think of limiting it. Even when we see the harmful effects, I would say that we should do a better job managing our FOMO, fear of missing out, and put some limits and controls on things so that our kids aren't suffering.
According to government data, 77% of U.S. schools say they prohibit cell phones for non-academic use. But advocates are calling for cell phone bans during the entire school day, just like Norway. I'm Janae Bowens reporting.
Janae, thank you. Beware, the seat in your car could be carcinogenic. That's according to a troubling new study published in Environmental Science and Technology. Researchers suggesting that the flame retardants used in the foam of many car seats can release potentially dangerous chemicals into the air. They also found this problem to be worse in the summer months than in colder months. Most cars with a model year of 2015 or newer are at risk. Researchers say the government should prohibit the use of flame retardants in cars altogether. And most of the lawsuits stemming from a deadly crowd surge at the 2021 Astroworld Festival are now settled. 10 people were killed during a concert by rapper Travis Scott. Lawyers said today that only one of 10 wrongful death lawsuits is still pending. It was filed by the family of 9-year-old Ezra Blount. Attorneys plan to meet next week to discuss the trial. One cancer survivor made it her mission to help other women have access to an innovative device that helps prevent patients from losing their hair. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares more.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. After a breast cancer diagnosis several years ago, Francie Pepper says her family decided to pay it forward. She was able to keep her hair using this kind of a treatment. And thanks to this technology, she wanted to make sure many other women had the same option. It all started when early on in her treatment, Francie and her husband John, who is the former CEO of Procter & Gamble and also a cancer survivor.
He had bladder cancer, and they didn't give him a chance. And he's been a survivor for over 16 years now.
Made the decision to have Francie treated at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York.
I was there for 10 months with weekly chemotherapy, weekly.
There, Francie was given the option of using a cool cap, much like this one, to reduce hair loss during treatment. It's hooked up to a machine that chills the scalp.
It's a mix of ice, water, and alcohol, and it helps the patients freeze their hair follicles.
Recently, when Francie needed treatment again, she told me she made the decision to have it close to home here at Ohio's Christ Hospital. The problem, there aren't enough cool caps here for women who need them. So Francie and her family made the decision to change that.
A woman who has no hair is announcing to the world that she's sick. And then the questions begin. I mean, women get all the questions. Can you do your job? Do we want you out in front of the public without any hair? Do we want to announce that? You're telling everybody you're sick. And that shouldn't be right.
Francie and John made a generous donation recently of more than $100,000. Enough, the team here says, to completely change the limited cold cap supply.
Francie and John's gift has allowed it to go to 3 of our outpatient centers so that the patients can just be close to their area and receive this treatment there.
Coming up, what ecologists have discovered about the power of beavers and helping prevent natural disasters. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
I spoke with Dr. Sonia Olson, a gastroenterologist. She explains doctors are seeing an unhealthy amount of drinking among young people, and that's leading to an increase in the number of people under 30 who are now needing liver transplants.
People don't realize that they're causing liver damage until it may be too late, because in the initial stages, there are no symptoms, but all alcohol is toxic to the liver.
Well, according to the World Health Organization, there is no safe amount of alcohol to consume. The dietary guidelines for Americans does label drinking in moderation for men as 2 or less drinks per day, and for women, 1 drink or less per day.
In the 17 and 1800s, beaver along with otter and other wildlife were hunted, harvested, and killed for their precious fur. Now these little guys are being celebrated for their very big benefits to the land where they were nearly hunted to extinction.
Starting to see some drag marks. You can start to see where the beavers have been coming out of the water.
Audrey Taub is the founder of the San Luis Obispo Beaver Brigade. The organization helps support care and research for beavers living around the Central California coastline. Taub explained how beavers on the hunt for wood for their dams create new channels of water from rivers that become new wetlands. A satellite imagery study by University of Minnesota professor Dr. Emily Fairfax showed wetland beaver habitat was less likely to burn in a wildfire and in some cases was almost completely spared.
The city has now put up tape around the encampment here at Powell Barnett Park. They've also put up these signs that say folks living here have until Thursday morning to get their stuff out before the city steps in and clears it. This puts some of those migrants back in the limbo. They say they feel like they're stuck in a cycle of going from hotels to parks, and that cycle seems to be far from over. Javier says the park camp was awful and hard on kids, including a newborn baby who he says was hospitalized from the cold. The city shut down the park camp right after neighbors publicly expressed concerns about the health and safety of more than 200 people living in the city park.
Well, Disneyland is getting a facelift. Coming up, what we know about what will be the biggest expansion seen at the theme park since its opening. Disneyland has just been cleared for a colossal expansion of its theme parks. Today, the Anaheim City Council unanimously gave final approval. Disney will now be able to use its owned land, previously only zoned for hotels and parking lots, for extra attractions, expected to total some $2 billion. Currently, Disneyland is on about 550 acres, which, by the way, is less than 2% of the size of what Walt Disney World in Florida has. And firefighters in the Milwaukee area working hard to keep families together, even when it's a family of ducks. Take a look at this. Firefighters in Wisconsin reuniting 4 baby ducks who were saved from a sewer in Oak Creek. It's common for ducklings to get caught in storm sewers in the springtime, but it's not so common to see them reunited with their mamas, making this site pretty darn special. And how about that? Just in time for Mother's Day this weekend. We love to see it. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful night.